Hey, so I had a fun use case that I wanted to talk about today, and that is how to use workflows to um, gather data from your users as like custom inputs, and then process it, and then append it back or add it to a Domo data set. Um, but the issue that I was encountering was I have a workflow that runs quite a bit. And so appending that to the data set can be quite expensive in terms of credit usage. Each append costs a credit. So in this case, what I wanted to show today was how you can use AppDB, which is a feature of Domo's Pro Code tools, to basically create a document store and then have that document store update once a day that would update the data set on the Domo side. And so if that doesn't make sense, don't worry. It's a little new, but I'm going to show basically what this looks like. So to begin, I have a very basic workflow here. It's a user workflow where it'll like create a new user in an instance. And so I'm just going to do a couple examples here where I could choose if they're an admin or not, submit it, and I'm going to go one more real quick. Let's say this one is an admin, submit it. Okay, so in this case, I've submitted it twice, and this is a pretty simple workflow. It's basically saying, hey, update the data set with this user credentials. And in this case, it hasn't updated yet, which is actually what we want to happen. We don't want it to update. We only want it to update once a day. And so in this case, I've created another workflow that has a code engine package that it'll manually trigger a sync of the AppDB. So if I run it real quick, I would run it and then come back. And if I look here, it's actually storing, and we'll be able to see the two new rows of data. If we just wait a second, we should see them. Let's refresh the screen. Cool. So now we got test one, test two, admin false, admin true. So awesome. Okay, so it looks like it's working well. So again, like I said, the purpose of this is to make it so that you can run a workflow. If you have workflows that run quite a bit, but you don't need the data right away, you can have them run, store the data, and then once a day, let's say at night or in the morning, you could have the other workflow kick off and then update the data set on the Domo side. That way, you're only updating it once a day as opposed to n number of times a day, depending on how many times this workflow is run. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm probably going to go a little more in depth about how to do this. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm basically going to replicate everything that I did. And so let's start with the first thing, which is there in Domo, there is a section called AppDB admin that if we just type in here, AppDB admin, this basically I'm not going to pretend I know all the ins and outs of AppDB. What I do know is that it's a document store database, so which is very nice for developers. It lets you store kind of unstructured or semi-structured JSON data that can be called. And so in this case, with Domo, you're able to use this in your pro code apps, and then also things like DDX bricks and workflows as well. So I'm just going to make a collection, and we'll just call it test collection, and click create. And then from here, we get to define our columns. So this is basically where we get to define the schema of the AppDB. And so in this case, I'm just going to go through a very simple one. So let's just do the same thing. Let's just do like name of user, and we'll make that a string. And then we'll call it is admin. And in this case, Domo's column types, there's no Boolean, so we'll just call that one a string as well. And so now we have two columns in our AppDB. And if we want to show, and I can show you kind of how you can pass data to AppDB. So in this case, in this admin, you can actually click new document, and you can put in like a test user here is admin. Let's say it's true, create it. And in this case, this creates a document. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's just a JSON. It's an object. And this admin also lets you enable the sync. Now, in this case, if this sync is enabled, I believe it goes off every 15 minutes. And so we don't want to do this actually. So I'm going to turn this off and refresh just to make sure that it's not going to run. So it's not. Okay, perfect. And then the other thing I'm going to do on this screen is this actually gives me the ID of the AppDB collection. We're going to use this later on in our workflow. So I'm just going to copy that to my clipboard. And then let's go and create our workflow to store data. So now I'll just create a new workflow. We'll give it test AppDB, click save. And in this case, let's do something similar. So we'll customize a start form, and we'll just do the same thing where it's like name of user and make it required, and then we'll say is admin question mark, and we'll make that. Let's see, what did we call that before? Was it a single choice radio? No, it was a. I can't remember what that was called. Let's see. Is it this? No. Okay, it is not a short answer. Okay, here we go. It is a single choice drop down. We're going to make it a Boolean. So it's just true or false. So now if I come here, okay, cool. Right, so then the end user can select if they're an admin and then also the name of it, which looks great. Okay, so that gives us two output parameters. And in this case, I'm actually just going to create a object in my workflow. And I'm going to call it an object. And we'll say this will be our user object. And you can actually add some child properties. So let's see. I think I might need to know exactly. Yeah, is admin and name of user. Okay, so let's go back here. Make an object. Okay, and then we'll just copy over this. So is admin, and we'll give that text. Oh no, sorry, not text, Boolean, and then name of user. We'll make that text, and we'll add that. So now we have a user object, and in this case, we can actually map. Oh, it looks like it does it for you already. We can map our inputs from the form. We'll map to the object, and then we'll pass this object to our AppDB. And so now what we'll do is we'll go here and we'll click a custom function. And if we search AppDB, we should get maybe let's search document. Nope. What is it called? Let's see. It is called create AppDB. So I'll just type up here AppDB. And it is create AppDB document, just a singular one. And so we'll say add automation. Cool. So now it's asking for the collection. And so this was the ID that we got from our URL. So that'll be our collection. And then the documents, we actually select our user object as the document that we're going to be inserting. And so document, when you hear document, you can really just think of it as a row in the data set that we're going to be storing in Domo. So this is looking good. And then really, I'm just going to end my workflow. This is a very simple workflow. But just to show that it's working properly, we can save it and then deploy it. And we can run it real quick. So let's actually duplicate this and kind of show you behind the scenes how you can check. I'll come back here and I'll come to my AppDB admin and go to my new test collection. And you can see I have one user. Now if we run the workflow, let's do my name. And of course I'm an admin, so I'll do that and click submit. So it ran successfully. And then if I come over here and refresh this page, we should see that we now have another user, which is awesome. So perfect. So that's step one. Right. So this workflow here, it can be much more complicated. It can do business logic, but this is basically how you can save your work or save evidence of your work in workflows. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to step two, which is we only want this to sync once a day. That way we can, have handle on our credit consumption. And so, like I said before, if you just want this to sync as frequently as possible, you can actually enable this sync right here, and it'll go off every 15 minutes, I believe. In this case, I'm going to disable it because I don't want it to go off every 15 minutes. I just want it to go off once a day. And so the way we're going to accomplish that is we're actually going to create a new workflow that calls a custom code engine function. And so if I come back let's create a new workflow, new one, and we'll just call it sync AppDB daily. And this here, its primary purpose is just to sync that AppDB collection. And so I'm going to come back here and copy, because we will need this one more time. So I'm going to copy this. And this one's also pretty easy. We're just going to come here and type, let's see, I think it's called sync collection. This is a custom function. If you are in our Domo community instance, you'll see it in there. So I don't think it's out of the box in your instance, but I will link a GitHub repo that shows the code. I don't, Scott, I wanted to shout out Scott Thompson here. He actually was the one on the Domo Slack channel that gave me this code here. And so basically all it's asking for is the collection ID. So we're going to put in the collection ID, click OK, and save this. And so basically what this is going to do is we can deploy this. And we have to put a end control on this. Okay, now let's deploy it. Okay, and so now with this, we can actually set it up on a schedule. So if I come back here, I can go to triggers and I can say I only want this to update with the timer, and I can say once a day, and then we can figure out the schedule. Got to translate to UTC, which I don't know off the top of my head, but in this case, it is on a schedule now. And so basically, the whole idea here is that we have a workflow. We can run it multiple times a day, n number of times a day, and then we have this other workflow that will only fire once a day. And so just to show you again how this works, let's do some test users. We'll make him not an admin, and then let's make her an admin. Cool. So now let's run our this other one, the sync AppDB daily. We'll just do a manual run, pretending that it's the timer is triggered. So we'll just run this, click start, and now that it's running, I should be able to go to my data set and see that I have a new data set in my data center. And so if I come here, we can see it actually synced over all the rows. And so we can see, it looks like it did not sync them over properly. Let's see. Okay, so I think I finally found my issue. So the issue with this not syncing is when naming your AppDB column names, you have to make sure that this name actually is identical to what your user object, so what your object is in workflows. And so in this case, I don't think these were perfectly lined up. And so I'm going to try this where I named them the same name of user and is admin user. And so now I'm going to save this and deploy it again. And this should work now. So now let's create a couple examples. Test again. We'll make them a admin, and then let's go with myself, and we'll say that I'm not an admin. Cool. So now let's go and let's run this. Cool. So it started. So now if I come back here, this should run. Now let's load this, and it looks like it's running again. Let's see if it saves them. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's it. So the column names have to be the same for both your user object and then also in your AppDB admin. So anyway, that's kind of a longer tutorial, but hope you found this helpful. Thanks.